Ugh, take that cheap thing. The gold watch struck my cheekbone with a dull, humiliating weight before sliding down into my lap. It was still warm from her hand. My wife didn't even look at me after throwing it. She turned away, her silk anniversary dress catching the dining room light like nothing had just happened. Like 10 years of shared mornings, shared rent, shared silence hadn't just been reduced to an object she could toss. A gift for your anniversary, she added coldly, adjusting her bracelet. The same bracelet I had once saved 3 months to buy. I ran my thumb over the watch's smooth edge. It wasn't cheap. I had chosen it because it reminded me of her, simple on the outside, intricate beneath. Or maybe I had been wrong about that too. As you say, dear, I replied quietly. She smirked at the calm in my voice. She always mistook calm for weakness. It was a mistake she had been making more often lately. The dining room smelled faintly of vanilla candles she hadn't lit for me. They were for guests now. For appearances. For the life she had already begun building without me noticing. I stood slowly, placing the watch into my pocket. Not out of pride. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. She didn't notice that part. She had already picked up her phone, already smiling at someone else's message. An hour later, she would walk into our bedroom and discover something missing. Not an object. Something far more permanent. And for the first time in years, she would finally feel what I had been feeling all along. Unprepared. She didn't follow me when I left the dining room. She never did anymore. Her laughter lingered behind me, soft, distracted, meant for someone who wasn't me. It blended with the faint hum of the refrigerator and the ticking wall clock, a rhythm that suddenly felt louder than it ever had before. Time had been speaking to me for months. I had just been too loyal to listen. My fingers brushed the gold watch in my pocket as I walked down the hallway. Each step felt unfamiliar, like I was walking through a museum replica of my own life. Our bedroom door stood half open. Inside, everything looked exactly the same. Her perfume bottle rested on the nightstand. Her shoes sat neatly aligned beside the closet. But something was different. I crossed the room slowly and opened the top drawer of my dresser. Empty. Not messy. Not disturbed. Just empty. I stared at the smooth wooden surface where my passport, my spare cards, and the small envelope had once lived. She had already moved first. Not impulsively. Carefully. Strategically. That quiet realization settled deeper than anger ever could. This wasn't a moment of cruelty. It was preparation. A plan that had been unfolding while I was still celebrating anniversaries. I let the drawer close without force. Behind me, I heard her heels approaching down the hallway. Sure. Confident. Unbothered. She leaned casually against the doorframe when she saw me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then her eyes flickered to the open drawer. And for the first time that evening, her smile hesitated. "What are you looking for?" she asked, her voice light, but her fingers tightened slightly around her phone. I didn't answer right away. I just rested my palm on the edge of the dresser, feeling the faint grooves in the wood. Marks from years of quiet, ordinary living. Marks from a version of me that had believed permanence was something you earned by staying. "Nothing," I said finally. It wasn't a lie. Not anymore. Her eyes searched my face, expecting confusion. Panic maybe. A question she could deflect with a smile or a carefully crafted excuse. Instead she found calm. And calm unsettled her. She straightened slightly, shifting her weight. "If you lost something, you should have been more careful." The words were casual. Almost rehearsed. I nodded slowly, absorbing them without resistance. It was strange, how quickly the body stopped reacting once the heart had already accepted the truth. She turned away first, as if the conversation had bored her. As if I had become background furniture in a house she was already planning to leave behind. Her phone lit up again. She smiled at it. Not the polite smile she gave me. The real one. I watched her disappear down the hallway, the sound of her heels fading into the same silence that had been growing between us for months. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out the gold watch. It ticked steadily. Unaffected. Certain. Unlike everything else. I flipped it over and ran my finger along the engraving I had added weeks ago. Words she had never bothered to read. Not because she didn't care. Because she had never expected me to stop waiting. That was her second mistake. I stayed there for a moment longer, listening. Her voice drifted faintly from the living room now, soft, careful, almost affectionate. A version of her that hadn't existed for me in a long time. I didn't need to hear the words to understand the meaning. I slipped the watch back into my pocket and walked toward the study at the end of the hall. The door creaked slightly when I pushed it open. She never came in here. She used to joke it smelled like old paper and quiet regret. She wasn't entirely wrong. The desk lamp cast a warm circle of light over the surface. Inside that circle sat the only thing she had overlooked. A thin black folder. Untouched. Unnoticed. I pulled the chair back and sat down, my fingers resting lightly on its cover. The leather was smooth, familiar. Patient. This wasn't something I had created in anger. It hadn't been born tonight. Or last week. It had begun the first time she stopped asking when I'd be home. The first time she stopped noticing when I was already there. I opened the folder slowly. Inside were copies. Agreements. Quiet decisions made in quieter moments. Not weapons. Boundaries. Protections. Truth written in ink instead of hope. From the living room, her laughter rose again, clear, confident, untouched by consequence. She believed she understood the structure of our life. She believed she knew where every door led. She didn't know this one existed. And more importantly, she didn't know I had already walked through it. I closed the folder and sat there for a moment, letting the silence settle around me. It wasn't the silence of defeat. It was the silence of completion. From the living room, her laughter softened, followed by the familiar chime of her phone ending a call. Pause. Then footsteps, slower this time. Curious. I stood and walked past her without a word, heading toward the kitchen. She watched me now. Not openly. Not directly. But I could feel it. At the counter, I picked up my glass and took a sip of water. It tasted ordinary. Neutral. Like the end of something that hadn't realized it was ending yet. Behind me, I heard the faint rustle of her purse opening. Then the subtle pause. The kind that only happens when expectation meets confusion. Her fingers moved again. Slower. Another pause. She stepped closer. Did you change something? She asked carefully. I turned toward her, meeting her eyes. They weren't angry. Not yet. Just uncertain. I gave a small shrug. You told me I should be more careful. The words landed between us, heavier than they sounded. She stared at me now, searching for the version of me she understood. The one who explained himself. The one who waited for permission to exist. But that version had already left the room. And for the first time since she threw the watch. She was the one who didn't know what came next. She didn't speak right away. Her hand remained inside her purse, fingers moving slowly, as if the answer might appear if she searched long enough. The quiet confidence she carried all evening began to thin, replaced by something fragile. Expectation without certainty. My card, she said finally, almost to herself. It's not here. I leaned lightly against the counter, watching her, not with satisfaction but with distance. The same distance she had given me for months. She pulled out her wallet completely now, checking each slot with growing precision. Then her eyes lifted to mine. What did you do? It wasn't an accusation. It was disbelief. I tilted my head slightly. Nothing sudden. The truth was, nothing about this was sudden. Every document in that folder had been signed weeks ago. Quietly. Legally. Carefully. Not out of revenge, but out of survival. She laughed softly, but it sounded forced. Stop being cryptic, Alexander. It was the first time she had said my name that night. Not with affection. With uncertainty. I reached into my pocket and placed the gold watch on the counter between us. Its steady ticking filled the space neither of us knew how to cross anymore. You were right, I said calmly. It didn't belong to you. Her eyes flickered between me and the watch. And in that reflection, something shifted. Not power. Not anger. Control. And she realized far too late. It had never been where she thought it was. She stared at the watch like it had betrayed her. Not because of what it was, but because of what it represented. Her hand hovered over it, then stopped as if touching it might confirm something she wasn't ready to accept. What does this mean? She asked quietly. The sharpness was gone. So was the performance. What remained was something honest. Something unguarded. I answered with the same calm she had once mistaken for weakness. It means things are where they're supposed to be. Her brows pulled together. You're talking like a stranger. I almost smiled. Because that was the truth neither of us had spoken yet. I had become one. Not tonight. Not suddenly. Gradually. In every ignored dinner. Every unanswered question. Every moment I had stayed while she quietly stepped away. She picked up her phone and tapped the screen. Waited. Nothing. Her eyes flickered again. Why isn't it working? It wasn't panic. Not yet. Just the unfamiliar weight of not being certain anymore. I stepped past her and reached for my coat, draped neatly over the chair. She watched me now, not with dismissal but with attention. Careful attention. The kind you give when something you assumed permanent begins to move. You can't just walk away, she said softly. I paused at the door, my hand resting on the frame. I didn't turn around. Because walking away wasn't the part she had misunderstood. It was how long ago I had already left. The door stood open in front of me, the cool night air slipping inside like a quiet witness. Behind me she didn't move. Didn't shout. Didn't command. For the first time since I had known her, she waited. Alexander, she said, and my name sounded unfamiliar in her voice. Not sharp. Not certain. Just fragile. I stopped, but I didn't turn around. I didn't think you would actually, she trailed off, unable to finish the sentence she had never imagined needing. Actually leave. Actually choose himself. Actually stop being available. I didn't take anything from you, I said calmly. I only took back what I never should have handed over without question. The words weren't cruel. They were clean. Final. She let out a soft breath behind me, like someone realizing the map they had followed was never theirs to begin with. I thought you needed me, she admitted. I nodded slightly even though she couldn't see it. I did, I said. That was the truth. But truths change when they're left unattended. I stepped forward onto the porch. The night felt wider than it had in years. Not empty. Open. Behind me, the gold watch continued ticking on the kitchen counter. Not counting what she had lost. Counting what I had finally reclaimed. And for the first time in a long time, time belonged to me.